Let's take a look at the top headlines of this hour. Senior Pentagon officials led by Army Secretary Dan Driscoll have arrived in Kyiv to meet President Zelensky and discuss efforts to end the war with Russia. The visit comes as reports emerge of a new peace plan and after a Russian strike killed at least 26 people in Ternopil. President Donald Trump says he has signed a bill requiring the release of government documents on Jeffrey Epstein. Trump, who had earlier opposed the measure, announced on Truth Social that he has just signed the bill. Hamas condemns new Israeli airstrikes in Gaza as a dangerous escalation, warning that they threaten an already fragile ceasefire. Israel says the strikes respond to a Hamas code violation, while medics report at least 25 people killed in the latest attacks. According to the German Research Center for Geosciences, a magnitude 6 earthquake struck Seram, Indonesia at a depth of 136 kilometers. Meanwhile, Indonesia has evacuated more than 900 people and worked to rescue 170 stranded climbers after Mount Semeru erupted 10 times, spewing ash and lava up to 13 kilometers down its slopes. Two passenger trains have collided in the Czech Republic, seriously injuring 5 people and lightly wounding around 40 others. Officials say all passengers are evacuated and initial reports suggest one train may have passed a stop signal. Taiwanese President Lai Ching-te has publicly backed Japan by eating Japanese-sourced sushi after China threatened to halt all Japanese seafood imports. Amid rising tensions, the dispute is now escalating following Japanese Prime Minister Sanai Takaichi's warning that a Chinese attack on Taiwan could trigger a Japanese military response. A Spanish court has ordered Meta to pay 479 million euros to 87 digital media outlets for unfair competition. In breaching EU data rules, judges say Meta has gained an illegal advantage by using personal data for targeted ads as a separate parliamentary probe begins. Now we start with Ukraine. Ukraine's military says it has struck Russia's Ryazan oil refinery on Wednesday, sparking a fire. The facility, operated by Rosneft, has been targeted several times this year as part of Ukraine's attacks on Russian energy infrastructure. Simultaneously, Ukrainian attacks cut power to over 16,000 residents in Kursk region. Debris from downed drones also caused fires in industrial areas near Ryazan. Russia has said that its air defenses shot down 16 drones over Ryazan and 65 across the country. This comes as Ukrainian President Zelensky met with Turkish President Erdogan in Ankara. Turkey has offered a platform for continued talks, while Kremlin indicated President Putin is open to discussions with the US and Turkey. Adding on, US delegation is in Kyiv to review proposals and verify facts on the ground. Now for this discussion, we welcome retired Major General Sudhakarji. He's a senior geopolitical and strategic defense expert, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Major General Sudhakarji, for joining us again. Good to see you. Major General, thank you. Major General, what are we to make of the current situation while these attacks escalate even on energy infrastructures? We're seeing that US delegations are visiting Kyiv, and then Zelensky is in Turkey discussing peace. But Russia, where is Russia and why is Russia not there? But also, whatever comes out of these talks, is it realistically feasible, the peace, or whatever comes out of this? What are we to make whatever comes out of this if Ukraine and Russia are not present in the same table?
Asoma, good evening. Thank you for getting me for your show.
Thank you.
Coming straight to the question, last part first, the quick answer is no. All the stakeholders should be present across the table, they should talk it out if they want to have some meaningful and lasting uh, peace roadmap. So at the moment, all I can say is that at least some effort is going on to bring peace. That is the silver lining. And for that effort to fructify in the direction of a lasting peace, some some struggle is being made because there is no defined, cutout, established solution to find peace. Almost everything is being tried out. Actually, the biggest victim, if you ask me, is that the correct diagnosis of the problem is not being done. If you diagnose the correct problem, like a patient goes to a doctor, doctor has an option to either diagnose the disease or the symptom. If he diagnoses symptom and prescribes a medicine, well, that will give you a temporary cure. If he diagnoses the disease and gives the medicine accordingly, it will be a lasting or permanent cure. So, what is it that we are looking for? Are we genuinely looking for some peace? The short answer is no. So, for the first part of your question, I think I have answered. If you have something else to come back to, please come back. Otherwise, I have something to add from my side.
Yes, Major General, you may add on, please.
Yeah. So you see now the geopolitical churn in the world order, to my understanding, is gradually taking a turn towards some kind of stabilization, whether it is towards the Middle East or towards the Central Europe. Donald Trump has had a grind of past 9 months, and there is also a lot of clamor and noise being made about the Epstein file in the USA. The USA economy is in doldrums. The inflation is going up because they wanted to contain it at 2%. Now I believe it has gone up to 3%. The GDP percentage growth is also coming down, and the debt is increasing. So they are in a thick soup and they are unable to show substantive progress as per the commitment made during the campaigning season. Saudi Arabia may be an exception, but commitment and doing things on ground are two different things. 48 F-35s to be bought from USA, Lockheed Martin, is a good commitment by Saudi Arabia. There is a long-term perspective which is being shown towards indicating towards realization of Abraham Accord. There is also a perspective which is coming in which indicates clearly that America is back to the race again, trying to push out China's influence in Middle East and elsewhere in the world, and also keep an eye on China and Russia so as to contain and counter and contest if need be. So these are the dynamics which are moving on. But the silver lining, I would say, that some sincere effort is going in despite all negativities and the reverse dynamics towards lasting peace in Middle East and also in Central Europe. When I talk about the Central Europe, your question pertains to Ukraine and Russia. At least there is an endeavor. There is a track two kind of a dialogue which is in progress with the stakeholders, that is Russia and Kyiv, Ukraine, and the people who are driving it obviously are from USA, but off and on I keep hearing about Turkey and also some representatives from Europe, and be that as it may, the reality are the following. The realities are, will Putin ever forego the 20% of the land that it has captured from 24th of April 2022? The short answer is no. If Putin does not accept foregoing this 20% of land, then how is the peace going to be negotiated? And if Putin does not accept, will Zelensky or Ukraine accept the loss of 20%? That amounts to actually the loss of sovereignty and integrity of territorial integrity of a country. That can only happen if Parliament ratifies the loss. And Parliament will ratify only if the leader, who's the leader now? Does Zelensky have a locus standi as a leader? He has already completed his presidential tenure. Is he on a kind of a loaned time frame? Does he have the sanctity? If he doesn't have, has the cabinet or the parliament of Ukraine extended the sanctity of a president of this country to sign documents and also the peace proposals? So these are the questions which will keep coming up till such time there is a substantive way forward coming through. These kind of bickerings and exchange of fire will continue at the energy centers, as you have alluded to in your preamble. And energy center, because it is peak of winter now in the cold, actually the offensive is unlikely to actually rest in peace. They will continue to keep encroaching into each other's territory. Majorly Russia will try to have maximum gain and advantage, because if at all peace comes, then on the negotiating table Russia is going to have a better bargaining chip in his favor. Back to you, please.
Yes, Major General Sudakarji. Please stay with us as we stay on this topic now. Thank you for sharing that. Now we stay on this topic. Ukraine and Russia have carried out a new exchange of bodies, with Kyiv receiving 1,000 and Moscow reportedly getting 30 people. Ukrainian authorities have said that investigators will examine the remains to identify them. Such swaps, along with prisoner exchanges, have been ongoing since Russia-Ukraine war, which began in February 2022. Peace talks, however, remain stalled, with the last face-to-face meeting held in July in Istanbul. Separately, European nations opposed a US-backed peace plan that could require Ukraine to cede territory and partially disarm, moves seen by Kyiv allies as risking capitulations. The previous exchanges have sometimes been disorderly, and Ukraine has accused Russia of returning bodies incorrectly, which Moscow denies. Now we welcome back retired Major General Sudakarji. He's a senior geopolitical and strategic defense expert. Thank you very much, Major General, for staying with us. As you were highlighting and the legitimacy of current Zelensky's government, or President Zelensky, what are we to make of all the corruption charges, or all the, the scandal that's coming out of now, while Zelensky is touring internationally to ask for more aid and a peace with Russia?
Yeah, there are multiple angles to the answer to your question. One of the angle is firstly the legitimacy. He doesn't hold the legitimacy of his appointment as a president. So what happens? How is he going around, asking for aid and military assistance? Well, who else in absence of Zelensky? Who is the next leader? Is there any leader in Zelensky worth his name who can play this role? He may have been a comedian earlier, but I think he's done a commendable job. He's held the nation together, and he has prevented a further onslaught of Russian armed forces aggression or ingress into Ukraine. 20% is fine. 20%, out of 20% which is under occupation of Russia, I would say a large percentage, 15 to 17%, was already under its domination, may not be occupation. And because they have this 30% of Russian speaking people are belonging to the Donbas region. So having said that, all I would say in response to your question is that he's definitely going around trying to marshal support and harness support from all like-minded countries, particularly Europe and USA. Behind all this, there is a hidden agenda of a deep state of America. And that hidden agenda is that this conflict should not come to an end. The proxy war must continue. Ukraine will be, as it is totally gone, devastated. There is nothing left in Ukraine today. And there are no people available to feed the armed forces. I really don't know how the armed forces are going to continue in absence of soldiers on the ground. Is it only the standoff attack by means of missiles and drones and the boots on ground which are being sponsored by outside agencies, other countries, or it is going to be a mere striking the logistic basis and the command, control and communication centers, thereby you incapacitate or you decapitate the leading heads, decision makers of Russia. That is how you keep them at bay and do not allow them to further ingress. So it is a matter of time which is going to tell us. But in the current times, the criticality as far as Zelensky is concerned is not the legitimacy, is to
Yes.
hold the Russians where they are now. They
Yes.
should not be allowed to come ahead of that line. It should not be 20%, should not become 21 or 25%. That is one, as per my understanding. The only way to do is going for the frontal attack, for which Ukraine does not have adequate resources. Therefore, it has to make Russian forces recoil from behind, hit the tail, hit the logistic bases, hit the command control communication centers and the leadership, hit the decision making modules. That is how it will make Russia recoil and prevent it from expanding beyond 20% of the land which is under occupation. Next and last point which I have is that Zelensky going around and begging for the martial support, the military support, is actually, he's not playing to the gallery. He's basically trying to discharge the mandate which has been outlined to him by the Western alliances. Western alliances do not want this conflict to end.
Yes.
And if at all it comes to an end, they will continue to have that false flag operation so that the finger continues to point at Russia. They will keep blaming Russia and
Yes.
prepare something eventually so that they can launch a counter-offensive in the garb of Russia preparing to destroy
Major
Europe
General.
or hit American soil by long-range missiles.
Great. Thank you very much, Major General Sidakarji, for sharing that insight. Thank you. Please stay with us as we come back to you for another discussion later. Now we move on to Iran. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has criticized a Western-backed UN resolution, saying it harms Tehran's cooperation with the International Atomic Energy Agency. Araghchi has said the resolution undermines the IAEA's credibility and independence, as well as it disrupts ongoing interactions and cooperation between Iran and the agency. He has accused the Western countries of ignoring Iran's goodwill and engagement. The IAEA resolution calls on Iran to provide access and information on its nuclear sites. Meanwhile, Iran's envoy to the International Atomic Energy Agency, Reza Najafi, has criticized a new UN nuclear watchdog resolution, saying it will harm cooperation over Iran's nuclear program. Let's listen in.
We believe that this resolution will not add anything to the current situation, will not be helpful. It is counterproductive. While Iran has already started cooperating with the agency despite all challenges and provided access to all undamaged facilities, this resolution certainly will have negative impact on the cooperation has already started between Iran and the agency.
Tensions between Iran and the IAEA rose after a 12-day conflict in June, which involved Israeli and U.S. strikes on key Iranian nuclear sites. Inspectors have not visited sensitive sites like Fordo and Natanz since, though other sites remain accessible. The resolution has passed the IAEA board by 19 votes to 3, with 12 abstentions, urging Iran to fully comply with UN Security Council obligations. Now for this discussion, we welcome Mr. Mohammad Osman. He's an international relations expert, joins us live from Cairo. Thank you very much, Mohammad Osman, for joining us again. Good to see you. Now looking at
Thank you for having me, Pia. Always a pleasure to be with you.
Same here. Thank you. Now, how justified is Iran in criticizing the Western-backed UN resolutions? And how do you analyze Iran's perspective on how they see this all connected to the Israeli airstrikes that were held this year?
Well, Iran, for all of its flaws, sees itself in the current predicament as the aggrieved party in this calculus. And in many ways, they are within their right to consider themselves as such because they have fallen victim to deception, to misleading diplomatic initiatives by the United States, which ended up in basically an Israeli aggression, war of aggression, 12-day war against Iran. And the US even joined the war in the final days, bombarding the 3 enrichment facilities in Natanz, Fordo, and Esfahan, causing great damage to the Iranian nuclear program, or so the United States claims, and Iran does attest to this fact. So it seems that now they have a trust crisis with the United States. They do not really respond positively to the diplomatic overtures by the United States anymore, and they are not that willing to cooperate with the International Atomic Agency, Energy Agency, either, because of the actions not only of the United States but because of the actions of other stakeholders as well, including the Europeans. As you very well remember, Asuma,
Yes.
that there was an
Yes.
agreement that was brokered by Egypt between Iran and the IAEA to resume inspections and cooperation between both parties. However, a few days after that, the Europeans decided to move forward with the activation of the snapback mechanism in the UN Security Council, and this, of course, pushed Iran to pull back from this agreement with the International Atomic Energy Agency. And unfortunately, now there seems to be a crisis between the International Atomic Energy Agency and Iran, because IEA is accusing Iran of not cooperating, and indeed Iran is not cooperating. They did allow access to certain nuclear facilities. However, they denied the IEA access to the facilities that were targeted by in the last war. And of course, they refuse to reveal the place of the 400 kilograms of enriched uranium. So if you ask me, Asuma, I think that war is in the air. I think that now the United States and Israel, and maybe even the collective West, is setting up the casus belli for a new war of aggression against Iran. And this resolution by the
Yes.
International Atomic Energy Agency, of course, seeks to prove that Iran is, or put Iran further within the area of being at fault or being in violation of international law, basically portraying Iran or reinforcing the international image, the internationally perceived image, at least in the West, of Iran as a pariah state that has what it's coming to it, basically. So this is the problem. This is this predicament we are facing now, Asuma. And I fear that if this course of action persists, we will be witnessing a new war with Iran in the next few months, if not weeks.
As you mentioned, a new war with Iran could be emerging. So how should the international community balance nuclear non-proliferation goals with respecting Iran's claims of sovereignty and goodwill in their whatever the ongoing nuclear sites? And do you think Iran will cooperate with IAEA anytime soon?
I think if the pragmatic factions within the Iranian regime that prevail in or their influence prevails, basically, or their viewpoint prevails, they will be more cooperative with the IAEA to prevent another war with Israel and the United States that basically they cannot win, and they know that they understand that fully. And maybe China and Russia have supplied, especially Russia, have supplied Iran lately with more modern weapons. They are trying to replenish their stockpiles of ammunition and missiles and air defenses. However, you do know that Iran understands that if it is subjected to another attack, the only thing that can save it, actually, if it's an all-out war, is Russia and China intervening, which will not happen. And Iran understands that fully. They are more than willing to let Iran burn for all they care, because they will not go as far as to enter a war with the United States or Israel to save the Iranian regime. Basically, their partnership is not strong enough so that this would take place. And the Iranians do understand that very well. They're very good diplomats. They are very well versed in understanding international politics. However, the problem is that there are hardliners on Iran who are being fatalistic about this, who do not mind throwing the country basically in the midst of the fire, basically, for the sake of their hardcore radical beliefs. And I'm afraid those people also, this faction in the Iranian regime, might prevail. However, if we assume
Yes.
that sound-minded people will own the day at the end of the day. I think they should be more cooperative with the IEEA. And on the other hand, if the United States and President Trump is really, really, really serious about his peace loving platform that
Yes.
he wishes to portray himself as, or portray himself as a peacemaker all the time, he needs to review his very stringent and unfair
Yes.
conditions for a nuclear deal with Iran. There are
100%.
valid points that are being raised about fears of Iran's behavior,
Yes.
about the enrichment, about the levels of enrichment. All of this needs to be subjected to certain
Yes.
oversight and a very stringent agreement that can be applied, maybe a revised, more stringent version of the 2015 agreement. However, trying to propose that Iran basically abandon its nuclear
Yes.
program and deassemble it basically
Yes.
just to please Israel and the United States. Of course, this is unrealistic because Iran is within its right to pursue its
Yes.
peaceful nuclear ambitions just like any other country in the world. So this is the problem
Yes.
that we are facing at the moment, Asuma. And
Yes,
I'm afraid
completely.
that the United States and Israel, of course, will not review their stance on the Iranian nuclear program. And likewise, the Iranians are now so paranoid by their previous experiences with Israel and the United States to the extent
Yes.
that they will be unable, even if they wish to, respond and interact positively with any diplomatic overtures. So I
Yes.
am extremely pessimistic,
Yes.
Asuma, I'm afraid.
Yes, 100%. You put it all perfectly over here and you laid down for us and our viewers. Thank you very much, Mohammad Osman, for joining us today and sharing that insight as an international relations expert from Cairo. Now we move on to Nepal. Clashes erupted in Nepal's Bara district yesterday between the GenZ protesters and CPN-UML supporters. The unrest originally started in the Simara city during a political demonstration and led to the detention of reportedly 2 individuals. Earlier today, authorities reimposed a daytime curfew from 1 p.m. to 8 p.m. local time to ensure public safety. The restriction included the airport area and surrounding locations amid reports of renewed confrontations. The curfew, however, has now been lifted after talks with GenZ protesters restoring normalcy in the district. The incident has escalated when CPN-UML leaders arrived in Simara for an anti-government rally and protesters confronted them. These fresh sets of clashes come just 2 months after violent GenZ protests in September, which toppled KP Sharma Oli's government and left about 51 people dead and injured over 1,300 others. In the aftermath of September protests, Sushila Karki has assumed office as the interim prime minister and later announced a judicial inquiry into the violence that grappled the protests. Now for this discussion, we welcome back retired Major General Sudhakarji. He's a senior geopolitical and strategic defense expert. Thank you very much, Major General Sudhakarji, for staying with us. And what more is happening in Nepal, and how does this, or what does this youth-led activism, like the GenZ protests in Nepal, is reflecting deeper issues of polarization and governance in Nepal? Sudhakarji, you might be muted here, Major General. Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Am I audible now?
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, now good question you have raised, and in
Thank you.
response, I would say our viewers should do well to take their mind back 2 months back. There is an interim government in place, and Sushila ma'am, the erstwhile Chief Justice of Supreme Court of Nepal, is playing the leadership role in maintaining calm and stability in the country. However, the inner dynamics is actually reflective of a couple of issues. First and foremost is there is a lack of trust. When I say lack of trust, what it means is there are multiple stakeholders. Now, Oili, who was the last prime minister, he's been in chair 4 times, if I respect my memory. Nobody would like to be removed from the chair in a unceremonious manner the way Oily was removed. So that inherent dissatisfaction or anger is playing as a component of ego in the heart and mind of Oily. This is my analysis. Now he's got a large support base. So when the large support base and the interim government in place, they're waiting, biding time to consolidate and regroup so that the elections can be held in the month of March in a peaceful manner. The Gen Z group is becoming impatient for a couple of issues. One, corruption. Number two, lack of trust. Number three, nepotism. Number four, you say something, you do something else. So the last point is saying something and doing something. The present environment does not permit to give any kind of or hold any kind of rally, anti-government rally. So when you hold anti-government rally under the circumstances, that actually provides the gunpowder, the dry powder to be the keg of God, dry powder to be ignited anytime. So that is what precisely my understanding says, that the two people, two important leaders of OLE's government, they wanted to hold anti-government rally and they wanted to catch a flight. And that is the time when the Gen Z came to know about it, because nothing can be hidden. What is conspiring inside, that burning desire to continue as a ruler, as a prime minister, will continue to actually plague or continue to dominate in the behavioral matrix of the ousted leadership, that is Mr. KP Oily. So, and all his supporting base, they are the ones who are actually resorting to provocative measures which are not liked by the Gen Z. Gen Z is that element. These are all worldly wise and also technologically savvy youth who have who had gone to the streets and have witnessed the violence that Nepal had to witness during those 7th and 8th of September, and they do not want a repeat of that. Also, the enforcement agencies, they also do not want, they have to play their cards very deftly close to the chest so that neither do they annoy the Gen Z, nor do they annoy the upcoming election stakeholders, the political parties, because if they do, sooner or later, they would be coming under the umbrella of the elected representative through the mandate of the people. So it's a very, very sensitive and delicate situation. I'm glad that the interim government has taken a very mature and responsible course of action and diffuse the situation. If the situation is not actually continues to remain diffused, it has got the potential to flare up and spread all over Nepal. It's a very dangerous and delicate situation. And also, until it is proven, I have something with me which makes me to suspect and also believe that there are some outside agencies who are trying to penetrate and infiltrate and provoke these Gen Z elements so that the violence continues, the election is not held on time. These are the attempts which are being made by outside forces. I'll not name anybody, but they are pointing towards the Western hemisphere. Until it comes out in black and white, it will be incorrect on my part to give out the names of these agencies prematurely. Back to Asuma.
Great insight. Thank you very much for shedding light on the history and current ongoing situation in Nepal. With that, I would like to thank Major General Sudhakarji for joining us today and sharing that insight throughout our news. Thank you. Now we move on to Vietnam. Severe flooding has struck central Vietnam, killing at least 16 people and leaving dozens stranded on rooftops. Heavy rains since late October have inundated popular tourist areas, including NHA, Trang, and the highlands around Dalat. Rescuers used boats and even broke into homes to save people trapped by rising waters in Gia Lai and Dak Lak provinces. Thousands of houses, over 43,000, were submerged and major roads were blocked by landslides. Business owners reported shops and restaurants under 1 to 2 meters of water, while landslides cut off access to tourist areas. Authorities continue to search for 5 missing people as rains persist and the flood waters show little sign of receding. Now we move on to Europe. Officials and astronauts have met in Cologne as the European Space Agency outlines its Argonaut program. A lunar lander project has designed to carry cargo and demonstrated that Europe can land safely on the moon. Argonaut will play a central role in future robotic and crewed missions, supporting international efforts such as NASA's Artemis program to establish a sustainable human presence on the moon. This will also provide Europe with independent access to the moon. As per reports from the 2030s, Argonaut landers will be launched on 4 booster Ariane 6 rockets to deliver cargo to the moon's surface, supporting robotic and crewed missions. Each lander will deliver up to 1,500 kilograms of cargo to the lunar surface, landing autonomously within an accuracy of 250 meters for the first flight and improved to an accuracy of 50 meters for the third flight. Let's listen into what ESA has shared.
Challenges or failures in the past up to now. So the key moment will then be the safe touchdown. And the safe touchdown is the main topic we want, or the main goal for this mission. We have to demonstrate that Europe has the capability to bring such a mission home, meaning to land safely. So I know that I asked our colleagues from industry quite a challenge, because we ask them to be fast, but at the same time we want them to be safe.
A challenge. We have had also a very, very open dialogue with the colleagues in ESA. So thank you very much for that. And it's only this with this will and this conviction of bringing European sovereignty to the moon that I'm sure we're going to have a successful mission and wonderful and interesting work to get there. Thank you very much.
Now we move on to our next news. French President Emmanuel Macron has arrived in Mauritius for an official visit at the invitation of Prime Minister Navin Ramgoolam. This is the first visit by a French head of state to Mauritius since Francois Mitterrand in 1990. Macron's stay is expected to last around 24 hours before he continues his diplomatic tour to South Africa to attend the G20 summit. His program includes meetings with President Dharam Gokul, a one-on-one session with Ramgoolam, and a state dinner. He will also attend an event on esports and emerging technologies at the Codon waterfront and inaugurate a new French embassy project. The visit highlights France's efforts to deepen ties with Mauritius and promote cooperation in technology and regional diplomacy. That's all we have time for. Keep watching News 6 World for